Hi, this is Kerry from FreeAudacityTutorials.com. This is beginner tutorial number 3. In this tutorial, I am going to show you some basic functions on the interface here to change the labels on your tracks, which is right here, to mute the channel, to solo the channel, to adjust the gain and the pan, and to minimize each track. Now, what you have here, this section here, that I guess what you'd call it is a track. It's this whole area is called a track, and they have their own labels right up here. Okay, so you can change those labels as you work on the track so that you can keep track of what you're doing. And it's real simple. You just go right here, you click on this arrow, you go to name, and then it's going to give you the name, and you type in something new, and I'm just going to put in new name. Okay, and you see there how it changed. It says new name. That's how you keep track of your tracks, because once you get multiple tracks in here, it can get pretty confusing as to which one you're using. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is the mute button. Now, while a track is playing,
guys, grab this. Oh, it looks like some kind of a Skype call, and then we realized afterwards.
now, this is an interview I did just a few days ago, and so I wanted to show you while that's playing. You hear the audio, but if you hit this mute button, see how it grays out everything in the track. You will not hear if I were to hit play. You'll hear nothing because it's muted that. Now, the reason you'll use that is there are times when you'll have multiple tracks and you're working on one of those tracks, editing out some things or amplifying something, and you only want to hear that track. Well, instead of having to take this track out, you can just mute it, and then you'll only hear the tracks that are unmuted. Now, the solo function does a similar thing, only in reverse. Now, in order to show you what this does, I am going to import an audio file to give you an idea. All right, this is some music from my friend Adam Ray at heyreyguitar.com, H-E-Y-R-E-Y guitar.com. And I'm just zooming in so we can see this a little better. Okay, now this top one is still the new name. It's the audio of a vocal conversation. Hi, Kevin. The bottom there is an audio track of music. Okay, now when I hit this solo button, what it's going to do is it's going to make this track that I'm hitting solo on the only track that I hear. And that's helpful so that if you're doing some editing, you're listening, you're trying to pick up something in particular, and you can't quite hear it because of the rest of the music, you can just quickly hit solo even while it's playing. Hi, Kevin. This is Kerry Green. And it's going to mute everything else so that you can hear that track alone. And you can turn it off again. Very helpful. Now, the other things I mentioned I was going to tell you is the gain, which is this section right here. The gain basically is a crude form of volume. If you look at when I press my cursor or my mouse button down on the control, you see it says gain 0 dB. Now, dB is decibels, and that is telling you volume essentially. 0 is the top that you want. If it goes over 0 into the positive, it's going to be clipping, which means it's going to be too loud. It's going to distort, and it's going to cause buzzing in your speakers. So you don't want that. So to do your gain like so, where it's going into the plus, is a little bit risky. It doesn't show any red marks or clipping, but when you play it, it's possible that it could be clipping, just depending on how low the recorded track was to begin with. So I usually do not use the gain to do any kind of volume increase. Instead, I'll use another tool or two, which I'll show you in some future tutorials. And then this is called the pan. See, it says center. Think of this as the balance. On your stereo, you probably have a left and right balance, so you can do this where it plays all the way left, which means in your left speaker, or all the way right in your right speaker, or right dead center, which is where I usually leave it. I don't have any reason usually to change that. Now, of course, there are scenarios where you'll want to do that. And then finally, I want to show you how to minimize a track, just like you can go up to the minimize function here on any Windows window and minimize it. You can also minimize an individual track to get it out of the way, and that's this little arrow right down here. You see how that makes that small? So if I had other tracks in here, you would see that they would have a lot more space for me to work on them. And I use this minimize function quite often. to help me utilize my space better while I'm not working on a certain track. Okay, that's about all for this particular episode. I want to remind you, when you're working on Audacity, always go to the File, Save, and do that repeatedly throughout your process, because if you have any glitches with your system and your computer locks up or anything like that, you could lose a lot of valuable work that you've been putting in. So get in the habit of saving your project often. Thanks again. FreeAudacityTutorials.com. Check out our podcast cover art and also the podcast consulting that I do there. Thanks.